There, macro folks, this is Mr. Hooker, and this is video number 2 on international macroeconomics. Let's get going. So, equilibrium exchange rates, basically in the exchange market, foreign exchange market, we're matching up the demand for a particular currency with people who want to buy it and the supply of said currency. So basically, if you run a business and you're selling to people in Germany, right? Then when they are paying you, um, they're not going to pay you in euros. They have to pay you in dollars. So they've got to go out and buy dollars out there on the foreign exchange market. That creates a demand for dollars. And then the same thing happens over here if we have people who are doing business with someone over there, um, right? So if somebody's buying from a business over in France, let's say, then we can't pay them in dollars. We have to pay them in euros. So we have to find somewhere to buy euros. And so the way this all works is who's buying more of what currency? So basically, what's going on is we keep buying currencies, and like if there's more euros bought, that creates more demand for euros, and the euro gets stronger against against most currencies. As more dollars are bought, and then the dollar gets stronger, and that's how this whole thing flows. And right now, the dollar is the standard world currency, and there is talk in the at the moment about replacing it with another currency called the BRICS. So, which isn't a single currency, but conglomeration of a number of currencies. So what that would do is it would basically devalue the currency. And the reason that the dollar is used is because you can turn the dollar into almost any currency. So you can trade the dollar, you can get the exchange for a dollar, you can exchange the dollar for any currency throughout the world. But there are certain currencies you cannot exchange for other currencies. They just don't exchange one to one. So what people do, and this is why it's called the world currency, if you are in one of those situations where you need to trade with someone and you can't trade your currency one to one, then both of you trade your currencies for dollars and then trade back out to the other one. Well, this immediately creates demand for the dollar and basically makes the dollar stronger. Did we do anything? No, not a darn thing. So this causes certain other countries to be a little upset with the U.S. because our currency is strong when all we are is just the general world currency. So they would like to replace us with this BRICS currency. And so that is um, just a thing that's kind of coming out now. And it is, if things keep going the way they are right now, it is highly likely to happen. Um, so there we go. So basically, there you end up with an equilibrium price and an equilibrium quantity, and there it is. So equilibrium exchange rate, the demand for foreign currency slopes downward. When the exchange rate falls, the dollar depreciates. U.S. goods look cheaper for Europeans. They need more U.S. dollars to pay for them. And the supply of foreign currency slopes upward because when the U.S. dollar rises against the euro, European products looks cheaper to us, so we demand more of them and convert more dollars into euros. So that's kind of the way that works. So the exchange rate is typically pretty stable. It's just the quantity of dollars that Europe wants to buy equals the quantity that Americans want to sell. So a hypothetical equilibrium in the foreign exchange market looks like this. Um, so it basically looks like the Europeans purchase of dollars in trillions. Um, it's 2 trillion. Um, and then U.S. sales of dollars, to buy European goods um, and services 1.5, and to buy European assets is is 0.5. For the European purchases for goods and services was 1, and to buy assets was 1. So turned out to be 2. So it turns out to be 2 both ways. And so balance of payments -5 for current account and +5 for the financial account. All right. If the demand curve for dollars shifts right, the dollar appreciates against the euro, and the dollar appreciates, exports fall, imports rise. And so basically, if that shifts right, value of the dollar goes up. So exports are going to fall, imports are going to rise. So there we go with that. So now we're at 2.25 in all of that. So they're now looking to buy only 2.25 or down 0.25. So they're only looking to buy 0.75. What are we in? Billion, trillions. So it's 0.75 trillion goods and services and 1.5 assets. And say U.S. sales, we're looking to buy 1.75 goods and services from Europe and zero point 0.5 assets with no change there. So our current account is down 0.5 and our financial account is up 0.5. So what matters is the real exchange rate. Is the exchange rate adjusted for differences in international difference in aggregate price levels? The real exchange rate between the Mexican peso and the U.S. dollar is pesos per dollar time, times peso uh, U.S. divided by peso uh, Mexican peso. So, if, for example, the peso depreciates by 50% and the price level rises by 50%, um, then the real exchange rate doesn't change. So the current account responds only to changes in the real account rate, not the nominal exchange rate. So if we analyze exports and imports, we got to focus on the real exchange rate, not the nominal exchange rate. So suppose the aggregate price level for a given market basket of goods in macro land is 125, while the aggregate price level for the same market basket of goods in fund land is 150. Suppose the exchange rate in macro land is $10 for fund land, $1. What's the real exchange rate? And so that's 12 to 1. So 1993 to February 23, the price of a dollar Mexican pesos increased dramatically because Mexico had higher inflation than the United States. The real exchange rate remained roughly the same. So there you go. Purchasing power parity between two countries' currencies is the nominal exchange rate at which a given basket of goods and services would cost the same amount in each country. So the nominal exchange rate between countries at similar levels of economic development tend to fluctuate around purchasing power parity. So a good example of that is there's a thing out there called the Big Mac Index. So basically, you can go out and look that up called Big Mac Index. And what they've done started with The Economist, a British publication, but they compare the prices of Big Macs all over the world because it's a standardized good. And so you can see how much a Big Mac is worth in every country. And so that gives you what the purchasing power parity is between all these different countries. It's kind of an interesting experiment, but it works. Um, so exchange rates are important. Governments have more power to influence nominal exchange rates than to influence ordinary prices. So an exchange rate regime is a rule governing policy for the exchange rate. So you got two types. You got the fixed and the floating. The fixed is a rate that's held at or near a particular target against some other currency. It's also sometimes called pegged. So you peg it to a currency. And then floating, the rate that's allowed to go wherever the market takes it. So those fixed or pegged rates are frowned upon in most economic circles because they're seen to be manipulated, right? Manipulated. Um, and so you have some countries that have done that. China did it. I think they still are doing it. It's just a bad thing to do. So when you do that, it just people don't really want to deal with you as much. If the government wants to manipulate its currency's exchange rate, three options: exchange market intervention, they do it with monetary policy, or foreign exchange controls. Um, so suppose the hypothetical country Genovia decides to fix its currency, the Geno, at $1.50 US. If it wants to fix its exchange rate above the equilibrium value, it must buy Genos and sell dollars. If it needs to fix it below the equilibrium value, it must sell Genos and buy dollars. So note that the key to this is you have to have the ability to buy and sell currency. Your central bank, if you're a small country, you may or may not have the money to do this. Just saying, it's a thing. If you don't have that money, it's going to be really interesting. So there's your target exchange rate. Um, so the surplus of the exchange rate of $1.50 per Geno. And so if that's your target, you got a shortage at the exchange rate of $1.50 per Geno. So you got to play that game. If we're if we're going to do exchange market intervention, that government purchase or sale of the currency at the foreign exchange market. So most countries maintain foreign exchange reserves, which is stocks of foreign currency, usually either dollars or euros, that they can use to buy their own currency to support its price. Two, you can try to shift the supply and demand curves for the Geno. They're usually going to do this by monetary policy. Um, for example, change the interest rate. Or you can just reduce the supply of Genos. So you can require residents who want to buy foreign currency to get a license, foreign exchange controls, licensing systems that limit the right of individuals to buy it, just making it really difficult. The more difficult you make it, the less people that are going to buy it, right? So you make them jump through a ton of hoops and just say, like, you got to do X, Y, and Z to get it. And if you do that, then people just aren't going to get it. So they would have to then use credit cards when they come to the country, which really doesn't affect your money supply. So that's one of those things. So, what action would help a government to fix the price of its currency above equilibrium? Limiting the right of the citizens to buy foreign currencies. Here's the dilemma. Um, the advantages of fixed exchange rates is they remove uncertainty for businesses. By committing itself to a fixed rate, a country is committing itself not to engage in inflationary policies. The disadvantage, they got to keep large quantities of foreign currency on hand. And that ain't always possible. I mean, it's hard to do. It's possible, but it's just hard to do. And if monetary policy is used to fix the exchange rate, it isn't available for domestic policy. If it isn't available for domestic policy, some other stuff can just get out of hand. You've seen that in previous chapters. And foreign exchange controls, import quotas, and tariffs distort incentives for importing and exporting goods and services. They can also bring about red tape and corruption. So you got all kind of issues there. Exchange rates and macro policy. When the euro was created in 1999, Britain didn't join and kept its own currency, the pound. Why? Because adopting the euro would have taken away Britain's independent monetary policy and might have led to macro problems. So in the modern world, capital flows add new levels of complications. So you got three issues. devaluation and revaluation of fixed exchange rates, monetary policy under floating exchange rates, and international business cycles. We're going to stop right there, and we will get the rest of this in video number 3.